Welcome back. We are very sorry for that technical hiccup as we were giving you what is on the People Daily newspaper. Now, let us get back onto the cover page where we see the cover story of the People Daily newspaper. Now, looking onto the cover page of the People Daily newspaper, we see on the cover page the big story of the day. Teacher Service Commission seeks 30 billion Kenya shillings for intern teachers. You can also check that. That's on the cover page, the big story of the day. Some other stories that we have on the cover page is that defiant president makes 20 million Kenya shillings church donation. And also we see youth ripped off in overseas job scam. At the same time, you also see on the same cover page, we see Raila heckled in Kisii after dismissing Matiang'i dream. That is a story on page 5. And also still on the cover page, we see Gen Z occupy city church in protest against Ruto money. You can also check that. That is on page 4 of the People Daily newspaper. Now on page 17, we see riders rewriting environment conservation. That's on page 17. Now, because we have spent much of the time, we are going to move with speed to page 2 of the People Daily newspaper. Now, looking into the inner page, page 2 of the People Daily newspaper is where we see Nyakango accuses counties of spending without approval. That is, the controller of budget has noted frequent non-adherence to the exchequer work plan by counties. A story by Rollins Otieno. The controller of budget, Margaret Nyakango, has exposed how some counties are spending millions without seeking approval from her office, while others deliberately overshoot their spending beyond approval limit. You can also check that story. That story is in page 2 of the People Daily newspaper. Now, on the same page 2, we see Gachagua now accuses Ruto of plan to split Mount Kenya communities. A story by Christine Musa and Faith Masharia. Now, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has dismissed President William Ruto's call for unity, terming him a tribal master focused on uniting other tribes against Mount Kenya region. Now, that's also a story there on page 2 of the People Daily newspaper. Please grab a copy and read more comprehensively. Now, moving on to page 3, where we see clerics call out critics on political church donations. A story by Matthew Ndungu. Now, a debate rages on whether the church should accept donations from politicians. A section of clerics has called out critics politicizing generosity to the church, saying they also deserve support from state actors to spur development. You can also grab a copy and read that more comprehensively. Now, briefly on page 3, we see Isiolo women rep hails Ruto Raila pact. Isiolo women MP Mumia Golo has lauded President William Ruto and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga's political pact, saying it will enhance stability and accelerate development in the country. You can also grab a copy and read much more comprehensively. Now, on to a story that many people would love to hear, and a story that many people have been so against, that is on SHA. Mombasa resident recount a tale of SHA nightmare. You can also get a copy and read on that story by Ruben Mwambingu. Despite regularly remitting monthly deduction at a time of need, system showed he is ineligible for the cover. That's a story from Mombasa. Please grab a copy and read much more comprehensively. Now, on page 4, President William Ruto claps back at his critics with another 20 million. You can also see that President William Ruto extend hand to other opposition leaders after last week collaboration with Raila Odinga and his ODM party. Story by Wycliffe Kipsang. Now, 2 days after entering into a pact with former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, President William Ruto is now extending a similar gesture to other opposition leaders, urging them to join his government. You can also check that and read more comprehensively of that story. Now, running battle as youths descend on Ruto pledge church. You can also check that story by Faith Masharia. It indicates that chaos erupted yesterday in Roysambu as hundreds of youths took to the streets to protest against President William Ruto's pledge of 120 million to Jesus Winner Ministry. You can also check that story and read more comprehensively. Now, moving on to page 5, where we see Youth Use Forum to chart 2027 plans. Story by Samuel Karaoke. Youngster throng Uhuru Park to craft lawful ways to upset political order and hoist national ideals. Now, that's a story which I believe is of great importance. You can grab a copy and also read there. Now, tense moment as Raila walks into hostile reception at Kisii Stadium. A story by Robert Oshoro and Faith Masharia. There was a tension at Gusii Stadium in Kisii County when a section of youth heckled former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, who had gone to watch a football match. The hostile reception in Raila's perceived stronghold came just 2 days after he signed a political pact with President William Ruto. You can also grab a copy of the People Daily newspaper and read more comprehensively. Now, moving on to page 6, where we see Teacher Service Commission now seeks 30.4 billion Kenyan shillings for confirming intern teachers. A story by Mercy Mwai. Move comes after CS confirmed that junior secondary school tutors will be absorbed on permanent and pensionable terms beginning January. You can also take a copy and read much of that story. Teacher Service Commission is seeking for additional 30.4 billion Kenyan shillings to be able to confirm 46,000 interns on permanent and pensionable basis, as well as procure insurance for the teachers. We believe that is going to be a great move as the country, as we look forward to see what's happening. Now, on the same page 6 of the People Daily newspaper, we see political tussle as parties wrestle for Matiang'i. Story by Evans Nyakundi. Now we see two political parties are embroiled in a political contest and supremacy battle over which one of them should fail former Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i for presidency in the next general election. Now we have a party known as United Progressive Alliance. This is a party which was formed by Matiang'i in 2022 before the elections, and now we have the Jubilee. Which party is going to get Matiang'i to be his running mate, their running mate? You can also grab a copy and check on that. Now on page 7, agony of youths are waiting for jobs and better life in Qatar. Now a story by Cynthia Atuo. Job seekers accuse recruitment agencies of taking them in circles as Labour CS Alfred Mutua urges them to be patient. You can also grab a copy. Sometimes last year, in the heart of Nairobi, under the dusty skies and the hustle of the city life, Kenyan job seekers gathered outside recruitment agencies to find a way of how they can get employment and jobs outside the country, that is in Qatar. You can also grab a copy and read much of that story and more comprehensively. Now, a story on page 8 where PS Kimutai's 500 million foreign travel shocker. A story by Mercy Mwai. 350 million is for foreign travel for the CS and PS, while 142.2 million is for legal fees for court case. You can grab a copy and read, but let me give you a brief of what is there. Medical Services Principal Secretary Harry Kimtai shocked MPs when he revealed that in the next 3 months, the department requires about 500 million for legal fee for the foreign travel, for legal fee and for foreign travel for himself and Cabinet Secretary Deborah Baraza. You can also grab a copy and read much more comprehensively. Another news that we believe is going to make NYS have a lot of impact in the Republic of Kenya is that National Youth Service to commercialize its services. Muturi tells House Committee, story by Rollins Otieno. National Youth Service, NYS, will sign a deal with the state entities to hire NYS trainees as security personnel at a fee. Public Service Cabinet Secretary Justin Muturi has said. You can also grab a copy and read that story and much more. Now remember, People Daily newspaper is a free newspaper. Just move to your close vendor, pick a copy and read much more comprehensively. It is your duty to read. We just give you a brief of what is in the People Daily newspaper. Now we are going to move with speed to page 13 where we say family reclaims 8 billion Kenya shillings land after lengthy court battle. Now, historic case, rope in a bag, personalities who served in former President Daniel Arap Moi regime. A story by Winston Cheseremi. After spending decades in and out of various courts, the family of the late Nyongio Kimitei will assume ownership of 8 billion worth of prime parcel of land left behind by the patriarch. You can also check that story and read more comprehensively. That means if you are outside there, remember the justice will serve you at the right time. Grab a copy and read much of that time. Kenya police called out over laxity in postal property inversion. You can also grab a copy and read that story by Oliver Musembi. Now, police in Kiambu have been accused of failing to offer security over the eviction of individuals said to have encroached on land belonging to Postal Corporation of Kenya at the Kiambu Post Office. You can also grab a copy and read much more comprehensively. On page 14, queries after Wajir MCA is freed by his abductors. Yusuf Ahmed was abducted from a taxi by people believed to be security officers on September 13th. Story by Zadok Angira. Please grab a copy and read of that story. Now, several questions remain unanswered after Wajir member of County Assembly Yusuf Hussein Ahmed, who went missing on September 13th last year, was finally released by his captors on Saturday evening in unclear circumstances. You can grab a copy and read much of that story. We'll see into that what is in the story. You will get to read more. Now, senators probe child trafficking in public and private health facilities. Story by Rollins Otieno. Now, Parliament is investigating child trafficking claims in health facilities run by national and county governments. The probe began after nominated Senator Esther Okanyuri raised the matter on the floor of the House. check and read much more comprehensively. We also see biocontrol agent approved to fight papaya mealbug pest. Now follow gradual release of parasitoid across several counties in Kenya, where farmers are affected by bug that causes over half of yield loss. You can also grab a copy and read much and more of that story. Now on page 16, renewed plastic talks edging closer to elusive binding pact. You can also check that story. Effort is required to develop treaty text for the resume negotiation INC 5.2, bringing in as many members behind it as possible. Story by Alberto Lenny. Please grab a copy and read much more of that story. We are going to move with speed to some other stories that we have in the paper, but before we move further, today we have a story that I believe it is important you can read, that is on page 18 of the People Daily newspaper. Surviving heart stress. High temperatures can cause heat related illness. Here is how to prevent them. You can grab a copy and read much of that story. We believe it is very helpful. Now into the business hub. Boost to household as LG unveiled mirror instant view refrigerator in Kenyan market. You can also check that and read story by Victor Mukabi. And also we see Kenya can fill US aid void, but debt crisis loom, says CS Mbadi. Now Mbadi says the country is saving 63 billion annually due to reduced borrowing rate, surpassing 52 billion Kenya shillings previously provided by the US organization. Story by Ruben Mwambingu. Please grab a copy and read much of that story. Now moving on, we see how seamless payment unlock growth for SMEs. That's you can also grab a copy and read much of that story. KenGen wins prestigious award for geothermal IoT project. I believe that's also a story which you can grab a copy and read. And also we see EAC urged to set up fund to spur petroleum sector. And we see Zanzibar president says sources scarce funding remain a key barrier to growth of the industry. You can also check that and read more comprehensively of that story. Now moving on to page 20, state unveils plan to scale up cogeneration bioethanol production. You can also read story by Kefas Otieno. And also cotton, on matters of cotton, Calro launches early maturing variety of cotton, and you can check there one of the flagship seed varieties introduced in Nyota, a seed that is ready for harvest just 2 months after planting. Now for the cotton farmers, Calro has launched something good that we believe is important. Just after planting for 2 months, you'll be able to harvest your cotton. You can also check that and read much of that story and more comprehensively. Now moving into world news, where we see UN crew member killed in attack on a chopper in Juba. You can also check that. White Army militant linked to Riek Machar blamed for deadly attack on UN helicopter. You can also check that and read that story. Also we see president celebrates International Women's Day. Mpox outbreak hits DRC amid ongoing conflicts. You can also read that story on World Matters. Alarming regression in path to peace in South Sudan and UN. You can also check that. Power sharing deal between President Salva Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar in peril amid recent violence. You can also check that story from Juba. It is very important to read more comprehensively. Now we move with speed to matters of sports. On sport, we see bankers missed a chance to hunt them. Bankers missed a chance that is going to hunt them. KCB Rugby Football Club now shift focus to Enterprise Cup semi-finals after being defeated by Cabras Rugby Football Club. That is a story by Lucky Olwatch. You can grab a copy and read. Cabras Sugar FC clinched a hard-fought 27-17 victory over KCB at ASK ground on Saturday, securing home advantage for upcoming Enterprise Cup semi-finals and sitting up high stakes rematch against the Bankers on March 15th. You can also grab a copy and read that for the lovers of rugby as a game. Kaplong boys honored late principal with emphatic title defense. You can also grab a copy and read that story by Kiplangat Kirui. You grab a copy and read that. Lioness feast on spring books in style. That is home girls deliver masterclass in Cape Town, standing out host South Africa to reclaim their Challenger Series title. Story by Barry Schiller. You can also grab a copy and read much and see what's going on in South Africa as matter of rugby is concerned. Now, back-to-back brilliance. That is on page 37. Jordan Slick powers through the raged Machakos terrain to clinch his second consecutive win in 2025 Loop Safari Grave Series. You can also grab a copy and read much of that story. Liverpool edges closer to title as Nottingham wins big over Manchester City. I believe that is a story I believe is very important. You can grab and read much of that story. Title rivals Bayern Leverkusen falter in Bundesliga title race. You can grab a copy and read much as we see Barca match postponed after club doctor dies and Celta Vigo wins. You can also check on that. And also end of an era. Manchester United star Garnacho reached agreement to return to Atletico Madrid. That's not so good news, but we look forward to see what's going to happen there. And also on page 39, Sheila rules the roasts in Nagoya. You can also check that. Kenyan's Chep Kirui wins Nagoya Women Marathon. That's a club that's advantage to our country, sticking 2.2 minutes 20 seconds and 2 hours 20 minutes and 40 seconds. You can also check that and read more comprehensively of that story. Tariff now makes World Cup more exciting, Donald Trump now says. You can also check that. Now moving on to the last page. It is not over until it is over. That is Coach Cheche calls for focus until they finish the job in Nairobi despite having 2-0 advantage over Uganda. You can also check that. That's Junior Harambee Starlets coach as they move with speed. Now that is the end of what we have for you, but let us move back to page 10 so that we check on the cartoon and the thoughts of the day. We move back to page 10. On page 10 we see the thoughts on the quotes of the day. One from CMDK chairperson Kiraitu Murungi. We successfully fought that in the 1992-1997 but formed 2001. The money culture has returned and captured the democratization process again. You can also check that and read that quote. And also we see Education CS Migosi Ogamba says the TVET reform agenda remains at the center of our national skills plan. We continue to make strides in the implementation of competency-based education and training CBET to ensure our graduates meet industry expectation. And we also have one from Labor CS, Alfred Mutua, that is Kenyans recruited for the jobs in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Germany will still travel as per the schedule set by the employment companies based on client's need and urgency. An employer cannot be forced to take youth before they are ready. You can also get to check on that. Now, cartoon of the day, looking at the cartoon of the day, where we see President William Ruto and Right Honorable former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga on top of an apple tree, sharing a bite of apple tree with ripe apple. And now we see, what shall we do? Now we see other leaders asking. The leaders, we see Kalonzo there, we see Eugene Wamalwa, we see Jimmy Wanjigi, former impeached deputy president Rigathi Gachagua, and also we see, I hope this is this must be the image of NAK Kenya party leader, that is Martha Karua, looking up on the top of a tree, where we see President William Ruto and former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga taking a bite of the apple. You can also check and read more comprehensively that. Now let me take on the thought of the day. On the thought of the day, we see everyone can be great because everyone can serve. Martin Luther King, that's what he says, that everyone can be great because everyone can serve. This country will not be a good place for any of us to live unless we make it good. We make it a good place for us to live in. That's the thought of the day from Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you so much, my dear viewers, for keeping tuned to BTV, for keeping us company. We have to bring this to a close. See you tomorrow, the same time, the same place. Have a wonderful Monday. Remember, it is chilly in Migori. You have to keep warm. Have a lovely day.
We offer design, printing and branding services using large format printing, offset and digital printing. Our approach to printing, graphics design and branding is top-notch with quality services including roll-up banners, street banners, teardrops, reflective banners, telescope banners, vehicle branding, road signages, mugs, badges, t-shirts, polo shirts, hoodies, pens, letterheads, business cards, envelopes, receipt books, brochures, flyers, posters, calendars, magazines, wedding cards, plastic ID cards, funeral programs, and many more. We also have indoor and outdoor videography, photography, and live streaming services. Visit us at our Migori Market, Onyinjo Bridge, Tiendege Stage offices. Call or WhatsApp us through 0721 37 9308 or 0736 35 2224. Connect with us on YouTube and Facebook at Blackman TV. We are on TikTok as BTV Kenya and also Blackman Studios on Facebook as well. Blackman Digital Graphics, quality you can trust. Welcome to Blackman Digital Graphics. We offer design,